Good morning, Thunder fans. It is Friday, June 6th, and the Oklahoma City Thunder have just fallen behind 1-0 in the NBA Finals after the Indiana Pacers, well, they did what the Pacers do and had a miraculous comeback in the fourth quarter, capped by Tyrese Halliburton. I don't even know, Jamison. What in the, I think when we talked about this series, we expected the Pacers to be frisky and feisty, in fourth quarters, and you kind of can't keep them within arm's length, but it's one thing to say it and it's another thing to see it happen.
Yeah, it's disappointing, and I think I can speak for most Thunder fans across. Thank God it's Friday, because if we had to keep on doing this for another day through the work week, it's going to be tough. I feel crippled with anxiety and sadness this morning because we've already seen this happen to us with the Denver game, and we just feel beaten down. But I mean, if you really want to be an optimist on this podcast, Bob, because we can turn that way, we played better ball than them for 42 minutes of the 48. So hopefully the law of averages average out and we can get things on the right road during this series. And
I don't even think it was a particularly standout performance from the Thunder either. It's not like this was everything was clicking, this was perfect, and the Pacers come back and beat us. There were a lot of things you can dissect with the game that, could be improved. But at the end of the day, you had a 1-0 NBA Finals lead in your hands and you let it slip away. And that's beyond frustrating. And a lot of what they've said, too, is, what the players have said is that they felt like they're trying to protect the lead rather than extend the lead. And that's something that bit them against Denver, something that bit them last night.
Yeah, it's a huge theme of just getting out of Thunder brand of basketball is always done as poorly. And there's other examples in this game where we stopped playing our brand. We are protecting the lead in the fourth quarter. We've seen this before where we've almost blown leads, and we've blown leads like the Denver game one. Other things. Other one of the star players on the other team gets in foul trouble. We try to foul hunt them. We lose the lead. We've seen that with Nikola Jokic whenever he was up. Whenever Chet and J-Dub tried to do that, didn't work. We saw that again in this game. There's a lot of times where Chet said, I'm going to take the ball and I know I can get by Miles Turner. I'm just going to go do it. That's not within the flow of the game. We just got to go out there and say what we've done is worked. We've won 80 games playing Thunder brand of basketball. Stop trying to shift just because something specifically changed in the game. It shouldn't matter every single possession. We play this 0-0 mentality, so it shouldn't matter if we're up big or if there's another team, another player on the other team that's in foul trouble or whatever. We should continue to play the same no matter.
I mean, I completely agree. And, Chet specifically, and I love the guy, but there were several moments in this game where he just kind of iso-balled whoever he was going up against and took some really, really poor shots.
It was mostly Miles Turner every single time, and Miles Turner is one of the better interior defenders in the league. This guy leads the playoffs and blocks shots. You're not going to drive by him as quickly as you are doing some of the other big men in the past.
Yeah, it was ill-advised, and I'm sure that's going to come out in the tape, and they'll process all of that. But, I think overall the offense was really clunky late. I felt like it was a lot of ISO ball, a lot of not really creative stuff. And I know that's kind of how the flow of a basketball game, especially an NBA Finals game, goes. It slows down, breaks down a little bit. But the Thunder have to find a way to generate something that's not just SGA, ISO. We're going to run right into Pascal Siakam and see what happens.
I will say that some of the shots that Shea got at the end of the game were pretty good. That last second shot with 10, 15 seconds left on the clock. That was a great shot. It just hit back iron. That's just, you just change the speed on that shot a little bit. It goes in, and then we start talking about, this is Shea's signature moment of hitting a clutch shot at the end of the game. But it didn't. And that's why we changed the complete narrative of this game. Of Shea didn't hit his shot. We don't talk about his performance in this game. And then we shifted over to Tyrese Halliburton, who honestly, Bobby, played horrible the whole game. He got absolutely shut down, and all he gets is the SVP post-game interview. He gets all of this, talk of how clutch he is, because he's been really clutch. But for the majority of that game, this dude was 2 of 7 from 3 and had 6 assists for a guy that led the league in assists and 14 points. That's not anything you should bat your eye and be like, wow, this guy was amazing. This wasn't a stellar Tyrese Halliburton game. It's really the way that the game ended completely shifts the narrative in a different direction, the general public, than what it actually was for the majority of that game.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like it's almost, Robert Horry-esque in a way where it's Horry, wasn't a superstar by any means, but he hits big shots. Tyrese Halliburton's not that. He's way more dynamic than that. But it's one of those things where if you hit the big shot at the end, if you have these moments, you get the glory, I suppose. And, I think the Thunder did a really good job of slowing him down. But, if you hit the big one, I guess honestly, that's just how it goes. To the victor goes the spoils, I suppose.
Yeah. I think that talking about positives of this game, we can kind of hit a lot into the negatives as we move forward, and they'll kind of always be sprinkled in whenever we're talking about a pessimistic loss. I really like the scheme that the Thunder put out there in terms of defensive scheme, because what I've seen a lot this playoffs that there was a little bit in the regular season, but I haven't seen it as much, is I feel like offenses try to pick out the weak link on defense in the playoffs. That's just an overall theme. The way that the Thunder play is they are putting the man that they want to guard their other star player on the screener. Like, they've realized that, Indiana loves having Miles Turner come and screen for Tyrese Halliburton. Well, if we don't put Chet as the initial guard of Miles Turner, then that screen is essentially moot. And so now they're realizing, with this small ball lineup, they're almost having to bring Shea over as the primary guarder of Tyrese Halliburton. I feel like Shea did a pretty decent job of guarding Halliburton. So I feel like this small lineup caught a lot of flack, because we lost this game. But overall, I was pretty happy with the way that it looked.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of people point to, and I don't need to do the qualifier every time, but, Case and Wallace, obviously being placed in the starting lineup, Isaiah Hartenstein getting bumped out. And you point to Case and Wallace's -10, and you're like, it was a bad idea. But, I didn't think the philosophy of going small and attacking Indy that way was the worst idea. I don't know if I loved the J-Dub at the 5 minutes. I think that's maybe a bit too small
to end the game, or the one before that.
To end the game. I mean,
to end the game, because they were down big and they knew that if 3-point shots were going to be the ones that killed them. Indiana made them either way, but you were not going to have Chet trying to guard a perimeter player like an Obi Toppin on the outside, rather than you'd have J-Dub guarding them. So I think that was the right move.
That checks out. Okay, I'm easily convinced, but I'm flipped on that. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Anyways, I don't know. This was a bit of a weird game. It was a weird Mark game. I feel like he likes to do these sort of feel out game ones where he throws a bunch out there. You got some early AJ Mitchell minutes, which were a little interesting.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah. I don't.
What's your opinion on that? Because I feel like some people had some pretty strong opinions.
I don't think it broke the game by any means.
No.
I thought Mitchell did a lot of really good on the court. He just wasn't hitting shots. I think it's maybe a little too cutesy for my liking, but I think overall, it didn't. I don't think it's as much of an impact as people are making it out to be.
Oh my God, yes! It's,
by any means,
people threw AJ Mitchell under the bus directly after he missed a 3-pointer in transition, and then got his own offensive rebound and missed the floater. Come on, guys! He did so many things other than that. He got 3 offensive rebounds, and he was playing within the flow of the game. Yes, he didn't make his shots. Was he an overall plus for us? No. But, my God, people just destroyed him, threw him under the bus. If you want to throw anyone under the bus for putting AJ on the floor, it's Mark Daignault. You're saying, hey, we don't need to be putting AJ out there. But AJ didn't deserve any of that flack. No. He went out there and did what he needed to do, and the shots just didn't fall.
Yeah, if you're going after AJ Mitchell, that's ridiculous.
And everyone was. Everyone was. Go back in your Twitter. I don't know if you could, but if you could go back in all of your text message threads, all of your Twitter threads, and see the timeline of whenever he missed those 2 shots, it was every single person I was following was talking about it and saying okay, that's horrible, AJ, get him out of there. AJ trying to screw over the game. Come on, guys. And I know this is in the big scheme of things, you already said it, Bobby, this does not matter towards the game. This is not why we lost, and we shouldn't be talking that much about it. But I feel like people were already looking for in this game of who is a scapegoat I can already throw under the bus, because we are playing so well on defense, but the offense just isn't popping like we're used to. Who is someone we can throw under the bus? And I think AJ just caught that.
Well, and I think to me, it's why are we putting a guy in that position who hasn't played a lot in the postseason, who hasn't played a lot in general since he got injured early in 2025? I feel like that's a weird, tough position to put him in. I don't understand it. It would be like if you threw in Topic right now and everyone's mad at him.
If
It's like,
AJ didn't
what do you
ever have,
expect him to do?
if AJ never had the toe injury and he had consistency during the end of the season, the way that he was playing at the early part of the season, do I say, like, is it okay for him to get a couple minutes in the playoffs, especially in an NBA Finals game? Yeah, because he played pretty well. Like, he's one of the guys that can go out there and create. And a guard creator is one of the holes in this Thunder team that we have. So, I mean, I see what he's going for, but in theory, you can't go put out a guy that's still trying to get off the cobwebs. I don't care about his garbage minutes in the Timberwolves series and how good they looked. That's not the same as the NBA Finals for a rookie.
Right, and I think that last point, a rookie, like that, you got to triple underline that. When you bring in Kenrich Williams in that Timberwolves series that, really kind of threw him for a loop, he's a veteran. He's been in experiences, maybe not quite the Western Conference Finals, but he knows, there's a lot less, cobwebs to knock off, but when you're a rookie, that's just not the same thing. I didn't love the move. I don't think it broke the back by any means. What did you think about Isaiah Joe's 11 minutes? I felt like that was
great.
A little much.
Yeah, I think that on offense, he hit his shots. That's what he needs. I think on defense, he let up a couple of defensive, possessions that made things look like he was a little bit out of match there, and we had to kind of play a little bit of zone with him on the court. I think in terms of Isaiah Joe minutes, I think that's fine, Bobby, because whenever he goes out there and he's making shots, the way he moves off ball and the way he does those little slip screens with Shea puts so much attention from the defense that really opens up a lot of other things that we want to do. So if he's shooting and things are working on offense, he's going to be an overall net positive, and that's why his overall net rating these past couple of years has been stellar. But whenever his defense is kind of falling off like that, then you start to think like maybe we shouldn't be playing him as much minutes. I think overall, Bobby, from our bench, we just needed someone to pop off on our bench because our starters were kind of either doing low to average, but we just needed somebody else. Like Shea and Lou were about it in terms of our scoring punch, and we just needed something else. And we were hoping to get that from Isaiah, but we couldn't sustain it for a long time because of his defensive end.
Yeah, I think to me that's kind of it, is the defensive trade-off is not worth, what you got out of him on offense, because even though he was pretty efficient, he only took 3 shots in total. I don't know. I feel like he didn't make enough of an impact on that end. And some of that's, just having to get him the ball, flow of the game, all of that sort of thing. I just feel like you could have, cranked up the Caruso minutes a little more in that sense. Caruso
he played 28 minutes. And so it's like, it comes down to like with the Caruso minutes, I feel like there's a double-edged sword with this. Do you want to play him upwards of 34, 35 minutes like a starter? Because he is one of the best 5 players on our team. Or is there a power in keeping him fresh and giving him less minutes to where he can go and create havoc in the minutes that he does have? So, it's hard because like you want somebody else on your bench other than Hartenstein and Caruso to go out there. And we need an 8th guy to go out there and pop. Pickens didn't pop enough. Jay Mitchell obviously didn't pop enough. Isaiah Joe tried, but he didn't. We need that 8th guy in the way that we play. And that's what the Indiana Pacers got straight up. Their bench was stellar, Bobby. Like, they shot 75% from 3, 8 of 12. Is that the right math?
What? I didn't hear the 75% part. Hold
on. Is that math? Is that mathing? No, that's 67%. That's 67%.
From what?
From 3. I just did the bad math in my head. Sorry, people. That's 67%. 8 of 12 from 3.
The bench shot that, not the overall team. But that, yeah, I mean,
8 of 12 from 3. 8 of 12 from 3 for them. And if you want to math and check me, I'm pretty sure that's now 67%. I screwed. That's the second pod in a row I screwed up math. But let's ignore that. 8 of 12 is stellar. And Obi Toppin 5 for 8 from 3. Thomas Bryant hit a corner 3. TJ McConnell hit a freaking 3. Ben Shepherd hit a 3 in the first half. Like, these are all things that the Thunder weren't getting. And you'll look at the plus minus in the box score and you'll be like, oh, but those players weren't the ones that turned the tide of the game in the fourth quarter. It was the starters on the Indiana Pacers. But as most Thunder fans were saying, we lost this game not because of our collapse in the fourth quarter. We lost this game because we weren't up 25 at half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean that first half, when you generate, 19 turnovers in a half, you should be killing that team. And they flat out weren't. And, the offense wasn't, J-Dub, we haven't even talked about J-Dub yet. I felt like J-Dub, Chet, the supporting cast didn't do enough offensively to, really turn the screws and, put the hurt on the Pacers. And that kept him in the game. I thought, even though like it was a relatively poor dub night shooting, he was pretty inefficient. It looked like one of those games where, yeah, I mean, we know the Jade Up, those type of Jade Up games by now, where he's getting good looks, they're just not going down. And
he missed so many mid-range shots, which was just so sad. Like, he
Yeah.
was getting to his shots that he makes, they just didn't go.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, the non-Shea minutes, they didn't do enough to, and really just any minutes, they didn't do enough to extend the lead. And I'm with you. That's what allowed the Pacers to get in, dagger range, really.
Yeah, it's because, like, basketball, I am so tired of saying this and even thinking it in this playoffs. It's like basketball is a game of runs. You're going to expect one team to go on big runs and cut deficits. You're going to expect the other team to respond. The way that is in a 48-minute game, sometimes that run ends with a Pacers run, and we don't get that response from the Thunder, and the Pacers walk out of the arena with a W. And the reality of it is we didn't give enough of a barrier to prevent the run that the Pacers were going to have.
Yep. I mean, I agree. That's kind of what it boils down to. But late game execution, I feel like you still could have prevented it. I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah,
so,
it's like like there's a lot of late game execution things. We were playing sluggish on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, I feel like, like we still made some good plays where it's like Dort's block at the end of the game. That was awesome. I thought that was a play where it's like, all right, move your hands against each other. That was like a good meal. That's a W right there, because that's like a defining like defensive play. But Indiana just had crazy things like the Andrew Nembhard ISO step back 3 where he shot it up like Lou Dort. Like that was wild. Like the Miles Turner freaking bank shot. Like, do you have any example? Like, I probably Indiana had 5 or so shots like that where it was either at the end of the shot clock or just some ridiculous play, and you're like, holy crap, how did that go in? I can't name a single time where the Thunder did that once, where other than the Lou Dort's little ISO 3, I don't know a time where it was like, holy crap, we made it.
Yeah, I mean, they got some demon magic going there in Indiana, man. That the bank shot 3, because it was from the corner too, right?
It was like it was close to the corner. So I don't know what the analytics will call it, but it was like close-ish to the corner where he still had an angle at the bank.
It was really funky, and it was that happened right in front of me, and I'm just like, okay, this is because it's happening. It's going to come. If you've been following the Pacers, if you've been following these playoffs, you're like, here it is. And I feel like it's frustrating to me that the Thunder didn't. Even though it was like right there, you've experienced this before in Game 1. You've seen the Pacers do this the entire series, like playoffs, and you still didn't do it. It's frustrating because I'm like, you could see it a mile away.
Yeah, and it's not like the Thunder went out there and like, all right, they knew as soon as like there's some non-verbal things happening where you could tell like, oh God, here comes the Pacers run. You could feel it in the arena, and the players, I'm sure, can feel it too. Like, our players are guys that watch the games. They know what's been happening for Indiana. And so it's like, it's not like they weren't trying to let this come on. It's just Indiana, like you said, there's something just in Indiana's late game heroics that just keeps on happening, and it's just like that, just the wind's at their back. And there's sometimes, no matter how hard you play on defense, sometimes shots fall, and that's just what was happening in that fourth quarter.
Yep, but it just, I don't know, it's frustrating, it's tough, but let's pivot our attention to Game 2. So gotta have that one, without a doubt. Like, the Thunder need to win Game 2. It's the most important game of the season. What can the Thunder do differently in Game 2 to turn the tide and send this thing back to Indiana tied up?
Do you keep the same starters, Bobby? What is your opinion on that?
I think you do, because I think if you do make a change, I don't think you can make that change, which it would be Isaiah Hartenstein starting instead of Chet.
Now that's the move I was gonna say. So
yeah,
that's an interesting thought process, because I don't think the double big got 0 minutes in this game. So I don't think the double bigs are coming back to this series, but you never know. Maybe as like a second quarter lineup. But Chet getting benched, is that something we want? Is like going to be significant of a bump to actually change this series, or is it going to do more harm than good to like the overall flow of this team?
Yeah. And I mean, that's tough. And I don't know Chet. I don't know how he would mentally respond to essentially getting benched. you would like to think that the team thinks of itself as one unit, movable pieces. You see what you can do, but at the end of the day, he's on the AT&T ads. He is one of Oklahoma City's stars, and that type of move would be really risky to the psyche of him and the team. And I don't think you're ready for that yet. I don't think you pull that trigger yet. I think you give Hartenstein more minutes, because I thought he was really, really good in the minutes he got, but I don't think you pull that trigger yet.
Yeah, I think that's a risk. That's a way you could lose the series by doing that.
That's you're down 2-1, you're down something like that. You
I don't
pull that
know,
ripcord.
2-1. Yeah,
you pull that ripcord if you're really like desperate. You don't.
I think
do it.
Rick Carlisle did a really damn good job at scheming Chet out of this game.
Yeah,
defensive and offensive. Like, in terms of protecting the paint, like, Chet was not there to roam like he wanted to. He only had one block this game. And even sometimes Chet will have, just intimidation blocks where he doesn't actually block the shot and they screw up in the middle. I didn't even see a lot of that. And that's something that you just get a feel of from watching the game. You can't see it in the box score. I didn't see that either. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Chet didn't have really any opportunity to get flares and good 3-point shots. He only shot the ball once from 3. And whenever Chet's realizing he can't get into his defensive game, he can't get into his offensive game, he forces it on offense. And we've seen that from him in the past. And he fell right into Rick Carlisle's trap. I don't think that's a reason to move on and bench him. But let me tell you something, Bobby, that thought that you had with Isaiah Hartenstein, that's something that crossed my mind too. But I just think that the way that we're playing basketball is we should not conform to what their coaching strategy is. We should go back and say, we know what works. We need to play smart brand of basketball. Chet, stop trying to force things. Case and Wallace, I don't care if you got switched on Tyrese Halliburton. Stop trying to drive the line and force him because you think that he's the weak link on the defense. That's not how we play Thunder basketball.
Yeah. And I think, to me, there's a lot of things you can take out, in film and, run through it and, refine your game plan. Because, again, I didn't think this was a particularly great performance from the Thunder outside of, the defensive end.
No,
in that first half.
We shot extremely poor. We shot under 40% from the field again, Bobby. That's pitiful.
It's not good. And, outside of Shea and Lou Dort offensively, I just wasn't there. Which, like you said earlier, it's a shame we're not talking about Shea's finals debut, because that was, I thought, an excellent, heroic performance on his end. He looked ready for the moment. He just, I don't know. He didn't, like you said, didn't hit that last shot. And instead of talking about a 40-point finals debut, we're talking about a loss.
Yeah. And in terms of things to look towards for the Thunder to win game 2, first of all, the shooting from Indiana, 46%. You're like, we can't have that happen again. It might. The way Indiana shoots the ball, it very well might. That's the reality of it. And then we've got to turn them over more in the second half. Maybe not as much in the first half, but we only let them have 4 or 5 turnovers in the second half. That's not Thunder brand of basketball. Simple as that. I think that once one of those things fall, where we either get a J-Dub game or check game, Indiana Pacers don't shoot the ball 46%, and then or we can get them to turn it over in the second half at a higher clip. One of those things fall, we win the game. It's just one of those 3.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of things that can flip that. I don't know. I'm pretty frustrated with it because I think, again, you had a great opportunity, but I think the Thunder can play better. And, you see it. It's not like we've learned anything about this series where you're like, oh, the Thunder is screwed. They can't find a way out of this. It just comes down to execution.
Yeah, I think most fans are looking at this game not in pessimism for the rest of the series. I still think a lot of people are optimistic that we can win the series. It's more so it's disappointment for what opportunity we had. And it's just going to be a lot harder now. And I think that a lot of the scars that were sealed and sutured up from the Denver series that we thought had healed and became stronger opened back up for a lot of fans after seeing the J-Dub, the check game, and then the last second heroics from the opposing team. But I think that looking at a larger sample size rather than the last fourth quarter, we need to say, hey, we've got something here. We really took away their best part of their game, and that's Tyrese Halliburton as a distributor and as a playmaker. He did not have a good game. And hopefully as things move into game 2, 3, and 4, we can kind of keep that narrative going because defense is something that'll always stay consistent. The turnovers, not as much, but on-ball defense, the way that Lou plays Tyrese Halliburton and the way that we switch off with Caruso and Kaysen, that's going to be pretty consistent, and that's not going to have variation from game to game. So I think that that's an optimistic thing looking forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the things that made the Thunder favorites in the series, and they still are actually, they're still there. You just need to kind of figure out those other details. And I think, to me, it's like you said, yeah, it makes the series a lot harder. You're going to have to win one in Indiana now. Look, you're going to have to win one in Indiana regardless, but just in the flow of the series, you got to get home court back. And if you want to really take full control of the series back, you got to win both in Indiana. And beside the point, you got to win game 2 or your championship run is essentially over. So yeah, that game 2, massive on Sunday. It's going to be a brutal wait today and Saturday to get to that.
These 3-day waits. We've been so spoiled for the playoffs. We essentially been the fastest moving team of almost anyone in the playoffs. We've usually had every others for the majority of this playoff. Waiting 2 days in between another game is brutal. It's brutal. Today feels like crap.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for us fans for sure. But for the team, hey, it gives you more time to scheme and run tape and all that. I guess. I don't know. I'm just ready to tip the ball off again. Let's get this thing going.
I think if the Thunder had it their way, they want the ball back right now. They want to say, give me the ball right now. Let's ride.
I think they'd want to run it back like immediately after. That's just how they get after it. But anyways, that's our game 1 recap. That's all we have for today. We'll be right back probably after game 2. I don't think we'll do a preview, but we hit the preview in this one. So we'll be back after game 2 to talk about what will be just surely a massive pivotal game in the NBA Finals. We'll see where it lands at that point. But Jamison, thanks for popping on to recap this. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe if this is your first time. Tell a friend, and if you I don't know, man. This I'm just still so.
Thank you for listening, because I know a lot of you do not want to listen to Thunder content right now. But give it a day, and maybe if you're listening to this on Saturday, it feels a little bit better.
Right? Yeah. If you're immediately like, ooh, Thunder recap, let's dive in.
That's sickos right there.
Yeah, you're a bit of a sicko, but imagine if you thought that was bad. Imagine how it was talking about it. Anyways, thank you all for listening. Have a good one. Keep the faith. Thunder up, everybody.